Welcome to Martha's Stories. She slid the check across the table without even looking at me. $120,000. Written out in full. Pushed gently, almost lovingly, toward my little sister, Claire. And nobody said a word. Nobody thought it was strange. Nobody even blinked. I was sitting right there. Same table. Same dinner. Same parents. Different daughter. My name is Nora Calloway. I am 27 years old. And what I am about to share with you is not a story of bitterness, though there were nights, so many cold, hollow, 3 in the morning nights, when I came dangerously close to that edge. This is a survival story. One that happens to end with the kind of justice that nobody planned, nobody scripted, and nobody could have seen coming, not even me. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I grew up in a gray stone house on Cedarwood Place in a quiet town outside of Hartford, Connecticut. Manicured lawn. Clean windows. A mailbox my father repainted every spring. From the outside, we were the picture of a stable, loving family. From the inside, well, that all depends on which daughter you ask. My mother, Vivian Calloway, had what I can only describe as a system. It was never written anywhere, never spoken out loud, but everyone in our house understood it the way you understand the rules of weather, you just know. Claire was the investment. I was the overhead. Claire got violin lessons every Tuesday. I got hand-me-down sheet music she never used. Claire got a new dress for homecoming every single year. I was told to be creative and make do. Claire's artwork hung in the living room. Mine sat rolled up in my closet. And my mother didn't bother hiding it. At neighborhood barbecues, she'd introduce us like items on a menu. "This is Claire," she'd say, her whole face lighting up like a sunrise. "She's going to do incredible things." Then she'd gesture vaguely toward me. "And this is Nora." No prediction. No pride. Just a name. The refrigerator in our house was practically a shrine to Claire's life. Cheerleading photos, honor certificates, a dried corsage from junior prom taped to the door handle. Every inch covered. One morning, sophomore year of high school, I stuck my own honor roll certificate right in the center of that fridge, held up by a little yellow magnet shaped like a sunflower. When I came home from school that afternoon, it was gone. The fridge was getting too crowded, my mother said, not even lifting her eyes from her magazine. I was 15 years old. And I learned something that afternoon that took me years to fully unpack. In our house, I was allowed to exist, but I was not allowed to take up space. My father, Robert, was a different kind of wound entirely. He wasn't cruel. He was absent, not physically, but in every way that mattered. Every now and then, he'd catch me alone in the hallway, and he'd squeeze my shoulder and whisper, "I'm proud of you, kid." 5 words. Always whispered. Always when Vivian wasn't in earshot, as if being proud of me was something that had to be hidden, something shameful, something that could only survive in secret. I told myself things would change when I got into college. I got in. Half scholarship. I just needed them to cover the rest. May. I was 18. Senior year had 11 days left. I had printed everything out, the scholarship letter, a 4-year budget on a spreadsheet, every part-time income stream mapped out. The gap I needed them to fill was $62,000 over 4 years. I had rehearsed my pitch in the bathroom mirror 3 times. Dinner was roast chicken that night. Claire sat across from me scrolling her phone. My father cut his meat in silence. I waited until my mother finished her second glass of wine, then I set the folder on the table. "I got into Hartwell University," I said. "Half scholarship. I just need help with the rest." My mother didn't open the folder. "Nora, we've talked about this." "We haven't actually," I said. "Not once. You need to learn independence." She said it like a diagnosis, like she was telling me I had a condition. I pointed to the obvious. You're paying Claire's full tuition at Alderton College. Claire's situation is different. My mother folded her napkin with this horrible, unhurried precision. She has potential that needs nurturing. You're more resilient. I looked at my father. He stared at his plate. His fork didn't move. He said nothing. Claire stirred her glass of water. Didn't look up. Not one word in my defense. This discussion is over, my mother said. If you want it bad enough, you'll find a way. That's what strong people do. I gathered my papers. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the folder. I would not cry in front of them. I would not give Vivian that. Later, in the hallway, my father caught my arm. I thought, finally, he was going to say something real. Your mother has her reasons, he said. Just give it time. Then he walked back to the living room. Back to the television. Back to the version of peace that required my silence. That night, I packed one suitcase. I had $340 in savings. And I made a decision I have not reversed in 9 years. 5:14 in the morning. The kitchen was dark. I placed my house key on the counter next to the coffee maker, the one my mother ran every morning at exactly 6:15, so she'd find it first. No note. I didn't have anything left to explain. The garage light was on. My father was sitting in his car, engine off, both hands on the wheel. He saw me through the windshield. I saw him. He didn't open the door. I didn't knock on the glass. We just looked at each other for 3 seconds that felt like a whole year. Then I turned and walked to the bus stop. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. Campus was 90 minutes away. My dorm room had a thin mattress, a metal desk, and a window that wouldn't close all the way. I had no sheets, no blankets. I had forgotten mine. I slept in my jacket that first night. Just even remembering it, the cold, the quiet, the overwhelming smallness of everything I owned. By the end of the first week, I had 3 jobs. Dishwasher at Rosario's, an Italian place on Main Street. Overnight cashier at a gas station on Route 44. Weekend cleaning crew at the residence halls. My schedule was a jigsaw puzzle with no picture on the box. 4 hours of sleep here. A 90-minute nap there. I ate whatever Rosario's was throwing out at closing time. 2 weeks in, I called my mother. I don't know why. Maybe I thought distance had softened something. You made your choice, she said. Don't call here to make me feel guilty. She hung up. 7 seconds. That was the entire conversation. I saved her number under a new name. Do not answer. That evening, a text came from Claire. Mom says you're being dramatic. Just come home and apologize. So that was the story being told. I wasn't the daughter they'd abandoned. I was the daughter who had left. The difficult one. The dramatic one. Stay with me. Because 9 years later, I walked into the back of Claire's wedding, and what happened in the next 4 minutes tore apart a lie they had been building for a decade. Keep watching. It's all coming. Freshman year nearly broke me, and I mean that in every sense of the word. I fell asleep twice in chemistry class. Once in the middle of a lecture, my head just went down onto the desk, and I didn't even have the energy to be embarrassed. I burned my left hand badly at Rosario's one night, 2nd-degree burn, 3 fingers, wrapped it in gauze from the gas station first aid kit and went to my morning lecture 40 minutes later. My GPA hovered at a 2.9. One more bad semester and I'd lose the scholarship. And without the scholarship, there was nothing. There was no backup plan. There was no safety net. There was just the ground, a very long way down. Professor Edmund Hartley saved me. He taught my Intro to Health Sciences seminar. Silver-haired, bow-tied, the kind of man who actually reads student papers instead of just skimming for keywords. After class one Tuesday, he asked me to stay behind. You're exhausted, he said. Not a question. I gave him the short version of my story. He didn't pity me, and I loved him for that. He pulled out a folder of internal grants and research assistantships. "You're too smart to burn out before sophomore year," he said. "Let me help you find a path that doesn't cost your hands or your sleep." He got me into a paid research position in his lab. $400 a month. It wasn't much, but it was enough to let me drop the overnight shifts. For the first time in months, I slept for 6 consecutive hours and woke up crying because I hadn't realized how starved I was for it. Thanksgiving came. I wasn't invited home. I found out afterward that my mother had told the entire extended family I had been asked to come and had refused. "She's so bitter," my mother reportedly said, dabbing her eyes. "We've tried everything." My Aunt Gloria, Vivian's younger sister, called me the week after. "Your mother is heartbroken, Nora. Why are you doing this to her?" I tried to explain. Gloria cut me off. "Vivian would never do that. You always were the difficult one." The line went dead. Just like that, I lost my mother's entire side of the family too. Every cousin, every aunt, every voice I'd grown up hearing at Christmas dinner, all of them absorbed into Vivian's version of the story, all of them deciding I was the villain before I'd finished a single sentence. That same week, Claire posted a photo on Instagram. A brand new Audi, red bow on the hood, parked in our parents' driveway. Caption: "Best parents in the whole world." My mother's comment underneath: "Anything for my baby girl." Followed by a row of heart emojis. 87 likes. I took a screenshot. Not out of bitterness, truly, not that. Out of clarity. That was the night I stopped waiting for them to change and started building a life that didn't need them to. Sophomore year, I met Serena Vosic on the first day of biology. She had a thermos of coffee the size of a small fire extinguisher and circles under her eyes that matched mine. "You look how I feel," she said. "Thanks," I said. "It's a compliment. It means you're still showing up." I think I fell in love with her as a friend in that exact moment. Serena was pre-med. Her parents had come over from Poland when she was 5. They ran a small alterations shop back home and couldn't afford her tuition any more than mine could. The difference being her parents actually wanted to help. They just couldn't. My parents could. They just chose not to. She became the first person I told everything to. All of it. The dinner. The check for Claire. The refrigerator. The Audi. I told her on a bench outside the science building at 11 at night, both of us eating gas station sandwiches because neither of us could afford the dining hall meal plan. Serena didn't flinch, didn't offer sympathy, didn't reach out to pat my hand. She wiped a smear of mustard from her chin and said, "You don't owe them a redemption arc, Nora. You owe yourself a life." I've carried those words in my chest ever since. That semester, I wrote a research paper for Professor Hartley's lab. 12 pages on data applications in small clinic management systems. Workflow optimization. Interoperability gaps. I wrote most of it in the staff break room at Rosario's, between loads of dishes, in the flickering fluorescent light. It was technical, dry, completely unglamorous. But it was the first thing I'd ever built that felt entirely mine. Professor Hartley read it in one sitting. "This could be something real," he said. "Not just a paper." He was right. But I didn't know that yet. My father sent me an email once, around that time. No subject line. No greeting. Just 7 words. "I hope you're eating enough. Dad." He didn't ask where I was. Didn't offer help. Didn't mention my mother. Just 7 words floating in digital silence, the emotional equivalent of a man knocking on a locked door and then walking away before anyone answered. I read it twice. Closed my laptop. Went back to work. The end of sophomore year almost took me under completely. Rosario's closed. The owner retired, the building sold, and just like that, 40% of my income disappeared overnight. I sat on my dorm bed doing the math 3 times, hoping the numbers would change. They didn't. I picked up my phone. Scrolled to do not answer. My thumb hovered over the green button for 11 seconds. I counted. I put the phone down. Instead, I walked to the campus job board and signed up for 2 more gigs. Tutoring freshmen in statistics. Freelance data entry for a local insurance company. Some mornings that spring, I couldn't remember the drive to campus. Serena started leaving granola bars in my backpack without telling me. I'd find them at the bottom, already a little warm from being there all day, and I would just hold them for a moment before I ate them, grateful for something I couldn't even fully name. Then Professor Hartley called me into his office. He handed me a letter. I'd been selected for a fully funded summer research fellowship. Housing, stipend, meals, everything. 10 weeks. You earned this, he said. Not because of your situation. Because of your work. That summer introduced me to a network of people in healthcare technology. People who saw what I could build, not where I came from. One name from that summer I would not hear again for years. Not until I was standing in the back of a wedding I was never supposed to attend. Next, I graduated. I built something from nothing. And just when my life was finally becoming what I'd always dreamed it could be, one envelope arrived that changed everything. Stay with me. I graduated summa cum laude on a Sunday in May. The stadium held 4,000 people. None of them were mine. Serena stood in the bleachers with a handmade sign that said Dr. Calloway eventually in crooked purple letters. She screamed my name when I crossed the stage. One person louder than an entire family would have been. We took a photo outside. Just the 2 of us, caps tilted, grins big and real and earned. Serena drove us to a diner on Route 9 and we split a plate of cheese fries and called it a celebration. And it was. It genuinely, completely was. I had a job within a month. Entry-level software analyst at a small health tech firm outside of Hartford. 12 employees. Cramped office. Terrible coffee. But I learned fast. I wrote code. I fixed systems nobody else wanted to touch. I got promoted once, then again. By the time I was 24, I was sketching something of my own, on napkins, on spreadsheets, on the backs of receipts during lunch breaks. A platform to manage patient data for small clinics. The ones too small for enterprise software but too complex for paper records. The idea from those 12 pages in Professor Hartley's lab had grown teeth. I used my savings and a small business loan to get it off the ground. Named it Clearbridge Health. The first year, I had 2 clients and a folding table for a desk. I filed everything under my almost married name. I'd been briefly engaged in my mid-20s to a man named Daniel Ashton. The relationship didn't survive the 80-hour work weeks, but by the time we parted ways, all my business filings, my conference name tags, my professional reputation read Nora Ashton. I never changed them back. It felt like mine in a way that Calloway hadn't for a very long time. Then one evening, my phone rang. A Connecticut area code I hadn't seen in 6 years. Hey. It's me. Claire. I know, I said. She needed money. $8,000. Mom and Dad couldn't know. No, I said. She hung up. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I picked up before I could think. How dare you refuse your own sister? My mother's voice. Colder than I remembered. I pressed the red button. Set the phone face down on the counter. Stood there for a moment, replaying what Claire had said. Mom doesn't know I'm calling. Either my mother had developed telepathy, or my sister had lied to me within the first 5 seconds of our first conversation in 6 years. Some things never change. I made myself a cup of tea and went back to work. Vivian didn't take rejection quietly. She never did. Within a week, my phone was ringing with numbers I hadn't seen in years. Cousins, family friends, the woman who used to babysit us in grade school. All with the same script. Nora, your mother is devastated. Nora, how could you turn your back on family? Then came a Facebook post. Long, beautiful, heartbroken. Dripping with constructed sorrow. Some children forget where they come from, she wrote. A mother's heart can only break so many times. She didn't name me. She didn't need to. Claire's comment sat right at the top. Love you, Mom. I'm always here for you. A perfect duet. I saw the post. I didn't react, didn't comment. I blocked both accounts, closed my laptop, and went back to the client integration due in the morning. 2 years later, ClearBridge Health closed its Series A round. $4.2 million in funding. 28 employees. A real office in downtown Boston with actual desks and a coffee machine that didn't taste like motor oil. I still drove a dented Honda Civic. I still lived in a one-bedroom apartment. I didn't build this company to impress anyone, I told Serena when she asked why I hadn't upgraded. I built it because I had no other option. That October, I was invited to speak at a healthcare technology conference in Chicago. 200 attendees. Hospital administrators, clinic operators, tech directors. I presented ClearBridge's platform, how it cut onboarding time for small practices by 60%. Afterward, a man in a gray blazer approached me near the coffee station. Tall. Confident handshake. Direct eye contact. Marcus Whitmore. CFO of Lakeridge Medical Partners. Regional clinic chain, expanding fast. What you showed up there is exactly what we've been looking for, he said. We exchanged cards. I wrote Marcus Whitmore, Lakeridge, follow-up November in my notebook. Just a name. Just a potential deal. As I sat at the gate waiting for my flight home, a notification popped on my phone. Claire Calloway has sent you a friend request. New account. The old one was still blocked. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I tapped decline and put my phone in my bag. I didn't know it yet, but Marcus Whitmore was about to become my sister's fiancé. And the deal we were building together was about to detonate a lie my family had been maintaining for 9 years. 6 months later, the Lakeridge contract was taking shape. $2.8 million. The largest deal in ClearBridge's history. My team had spent weeks on proposals, compliance documentation, technical specs. As part of the implementation, Lakeridge needed us to handle their credentialing module, the system that tracks staff licenses and certifications for regulatory audits. Standard procedure. We needed their existing personnel records as sample data to configure the system properly. My compliance officer requested the full staff roster with credentials listed. It was a technical requirement. Not an investigation. Just data we needed. That part was routine. What wasn't routine was the cream-colored envelope that arrived at my apartment on a Tuesday afternoon, heavy cardstock, gold embossing along the edges. Together with their families, Claire Calloway and Marcus Whitmore request the honor of your presence at their wedding. Thornfield Estate, Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Saturday, June 14th. 5 o'clock in the evening. I read it twice. Then I set it on the counter and walked to the window. Marcus Whitmore. The same Marcus Whitmore whose contract was sitting in my inbox. My sister was marrying my biggest client. I picked up the invitation again. A folded piece of notebook paper fell out from behind the RSVP card. The handwriting was shaky, pressed hard into the page. Please come. Dad. Not Vivian. Not Claire. Robert. He'd slipped it in like contraband. I called Serena that night. My sister is marrying my biggest client. Silence. Then, does he know who you are? He knows me as the CEO of ClearBridge. Not as Claire's sister. Does Claire know? I don't think so. She has no idea what I do. So what are you going to do? I looked at my father's note. His shaky handwriting on torn notebook paper, tucked behind an RSVP card like he was afraid someone would see it. Like even this small act of reaching out had to be hidden from Vivian. I'm going to go, I said. I walked into that wedding with my eyes wide open. And what happened next, in front of 200 people, in under 4 minutes, destroyed a lie, exposed a truth 9 years in the making, and left my mother standing in the wreckage of the story she had spent a lifetime building. You are not going to want to miss this. Thornfield Estate sat on 12 acres of rolling vineyard just north of the Connecticut shoreline. String lights hung in loops between old oak trees. White linen draped every surface. A string quartet played something soft and tasteful near the garden entrance. 200 chairs faced a flower-covered arch. It looked like a magazine spread. It looked like money. My parents' money. Serena and I arrived at 4:40. I wore a simple navy dress, hair down, nothing worth noticing. Serena wore black. Moral support and funeral energy, she whispered. Both apply. We'd barely made it past the welcome table when a voice cut through the music. I didn't expect to see you here. Aunt Gloria. Champagne in hand. Same expression she'd worn the last time she'd called me the difficult one. I was invited, I said. She opened her mouth, closed it, then retreated toward a cluster of cousins near the bar. Then my mother appeared. Vivian Calloway moved through that reception the way she always moved through every room she'd ever been in, like she owned the air itself. Champagne-colored dress. Hair perfect. Smile set to full wattage. She touched shoulders, kissed cheeks, laughed at things that weren't funny. When she saw me, the smile didn't drop. It froze. She crossed the lawn in 6 seconds flat and pulled me behind a trellis of white roses. What are you doing here? Attending my sister's wedding. You haven't been part of this family for 9 years. Whose choice was that? Her jaw tightened. Don't make a scene. Not today. I have no intention of making a scene, Mom. She studied me for 3 long seconds, reading me, calculating. Then she turned back to her guests, her voice bright as sunlight. Nora decided to surprise us. How wonderful. She didn't touch me. Didn't hug me. Just folded me into her performance like a loose thread she needed to tuck out of sight before anyone noticed. Then a hand on my shoulder. I turned. My father. His suit was a little too big. His eyes were red. He didn't say a single word. He just pulled me into his arms and held on. 9 years. The first real embrace in 9 years. I went rigid for a moment, my body didn't remember how to receive this, and then I exhaled, slowly, and patted his back. Hi, Dad. He nodded into my shoulder and held tighter. I could feel Vivian's eyes on my back the entire time. She wasn't angry that I'd come. She was afraid. I just didn't understand why yet. Claire found me 10 minutes later. She came through the crowd in a cloud of white tulle and hairspray, her face cycling through emotions faster than she could land on one. Shock, calculation, and then, right on cue, performance. Nora. Oh my goodness, you came. She threw her arms around me in front of a dozen watching guests, her voice pitched high enough to carry. I've missed you so much. Her perfume was expensive. Her hug was hollow. She squeezed me like a prop, tight enough for the cameras, loose enough to mean nothing. You look great, she said, stepping back, scanning me head to toe. Not warmth. Assessment. Congratulations, Claire. My mother materialized at my elbow. Let's get you seated, Nora. Her hand closed around my arm, not gently, and steered me toward the very back of the reception area. The table was tucked behind a pillar near the catering entrance. Place cards for names I didn't recognize. Claire's coworkers, plus ones without partners. The farthest table from the head table. The farthest table from the microphone. We didn't expect you, Vivian said. So this was the only spot left. Serena sat down beside me and said nothing. She didn't need to. Her expression said everything. From the head table, my mother's voice carried across the reception as she introduced Claire to well-wishers. My daughter, the healthcare executive. She's done so incredibly well. We're so proud. A cousin leaned toward Vivian. And Nora, what does she do these days? Oh, she's, a pause, a tilt of the head, finding herself. You know how it is. Light laughter rippled across the table. A few people glanced in my direction. Serena's hand found mine under the tablecloth. Breathe. I am breathing. I've been breathing through worse than this for 9 years. The speeches began after the main course. The best man was charming and forgettable. Claire's maid of honor cried on cue. Then my mother stood up. Vivian took that microphone like she'd been born holding one. She talked about sacrifice. About pouring everything into a child's future. About Claire's incredible academic career, her dedication, her independence. I raised my daughter to be independent, Vivian said. To never settle. To chase her dreams. Independent. The same word she had used to deny me everything. I raised my daughter. Singular. 200 people applauded. I did not move. Then Vivian's gaze drifted across the room and landed on me. And of course, she said, the way you'd add a footnote to a letter that was already finished, we love all our children. A few heads turned toward me. I kept my face still. Vivian wrapped up with a grand sweep. Why does it feel like something's missing today? Oh, I think it's because our family is finally complete again. More applause. My mother returned to her seat glowing. My father appeared at my table moments later. His hand found my shoulder. She didn't mean it like that. She meant exactly that, Dad. She always does. He opened his mouth. Nothing came. He patted my shoulder once and walked back to the head table. I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to cause a scene. I was going to sit at my back of the room table and leave quietly. That was the plan. That was always the plan. But then Marcus walked toward my table. His business partner, Greg, saw me first. Greg Hamill, I'd met him once on a video call during contract negotiations. He stopped mid-stride 3 feet away. Nora? Nora Ashton? Clearbridge? Marcus turned. Looked at me. Then looked again. Wait, you're Nora Ashton? The Nora Ashton? I stood. Hi, Marcus. But Ashton, that's not, he looked at the invitation in his memory, Calloway. Wait. Your last name is Calloway. Nora Calloway. Claire's older sister. I go by Ashton professionally. Have for years, the air between us changed. I watched Marcus do the math in real time. The last name. The invitation. The sister Claire had mentioned only in passing, always vaguely, always dismissively. She never, he trailed off. She never mentioned she had a sister in tech. What did she tell you about me? His eyes dropped. She said you were estranged. That you had difficulties. People at nearby tables were turning. A conversation at this volume with the groom at a wedding draws eyes. My mother appeared in seconds. Marcus, darling, don't bother Nora. Her voice was warm. Her eyes were not. She's here to enjoy herself, not to talk business. Marcus looked at Vivian the way you look at someone who has just told you the sky is green. Business, Mrs. Calloway? Do you know who this is? He gestured toward me. This is the CEO of Clearbridge Health. We're about to sign a $2.8 million contract with her company. Vivian's face did something I had never seen before. For 1 second, maybe less, the mask slipped. Her mouth opened. Her eyes went wide. Something behind them recalculated at extraordinary speed. Then the smile returned. Thinner. Tighter. Well, isn't that lovely? Across the reception, Claire was watching. Her body had gone completely still, her glass frozen halfway to her lips. She set it down on the nearest table and started walking toward us. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in my sister's eyes. Not of me. Of being found out. Marcus didn't wait for Claire to reach us. He was already moving toward the stage. Everyone, sorry, one more quick announcement. He grinned at the crowd. 200 faces turned. I just found out something incredible. The CEO of Clearbridge Health, the company that's about to transform our clinic operations, she's here tonight. And she happens to be Claire's older sister. The string quartet stopped. Even the catering staff paused. Nora Ashton, or as I just found out, Nora Calloway, built her company from the ground up. No family money, no investors at the start. She coded the first prototype herself while working multiple jobs. Forbes 30 Under 30 finalist. And she's been sitting at the back table this whole time. Silence first. Then scattered applause. Then louder. Then sustained. People craned their necks. A few stood. I stayed on my feet. Nodded once. Thank you, Marcus. This is Claire's day. Let's keep the focus on the bride and groom. But 200 people were already recalculating. I could see it on their faces. The whispers started immediately. Wait, that's the sister? Donna said she was finding herself? That's the one who left? Forbes. At the head table, Vivian sat motionless. Still smiling, but the smile had gone rigid, the kind of expression muscles hold when the brain behind them has stopped sending instructions. Aunt Gloria walked up to me. Her face was flushed pink. Why didn't you tell us? I did, Aunt Gloria. 6 years ago. You said I was the difficult one. She had no answer. She stood there with her mouth half open, then turned and walked away. And then came the moment nobody planned for. Not even me. The credential verification results had arrived on Saturday morning, forwarded to my phone 3 hours before I got in the car. I hadn't had time to process them through legal. I hadn't figured out how to have that conversation yet. The software had found what it was designed to find. Marcus's face when he came to find me on the balcony was flat. Controlled. Stripped of all the warmth from 20 minutes ago. Paige, sorry, Nora. Can we talk? We stepped outside. The sun was setting over the vineyard. The light was beautiful. It felt obscene given what was coming. My team sent me the due diligence results this morning, he said, holding up his phone. Claire's credential verification came back flagged. Her master's degree from the university on her resume doesn't exist. They have no record of her completing any program. She enrolled but didn't finish sophomore year. I know, I said. He stared at me. You knew and you didn't tell me. The results came back yesterday morning, Marcus. There's a protocol. I was going to process it through legal before saying a word to anyone. He turned back to the vineyard. Both hands on the railing. 3 minutes of silence. Then he said, I'm going to ask her once. In front of everyone. Because if she lies to my face one more time, in front of my family and my partners, then I'll know exactly who I almost married. Marcus, don't. This isn't the way. He walked back inside. I followed 3 steps behind, not wanting to be part of what was coming, but unable to look away. Claire was near the cake table, chatting with a bridesmaid, her smile working overtime. She saw Marcus coming and her face brightened. Baby, whatever she told you. Did you graduate from Westfield State? The bridesmaid took a full step back. What? Claire laughed, a short nervous sound. Did you graduate? Marcus's voice was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes rooms lean in. Claire's eyes moved. Left. Right. Scanning the room, measuring who could hear. Can we talk about this somewhere private? You told me you had a master's degree. You told your parents you graduated with honors. You told my clinic you were a certified healthcare executive. Vivian materialized at Claire's side. Her hand closed around Claire's arm. Marcus, lower your voice. Did you know? Marcus turned to Vivian. Know what? My daughter graduated with distinction. She didn't graduate at all, Mrs. Calloway. Marcus's voice cracked on the last word. She dropped out sophomore year. My legal team confirmed it this morning. 200 guests. Total silence. Even the string quartet had stopped for the second time. The only sound was a wine glass someone set down too hard at table 6. Claire's face crumpled. All at once, the performance collapsed like scaffolding falling off a building. Tears streaked her makeup. Her bouquet dangled loose from her hand. Marcus, I was going to tell you. When? He said it so quietly. After the wedding? After you'd been in my company on a falsified resume? Vivian opened her mouth again and Marcus held up one hand, not loud, not a shout, just a single flat stop. Then he turned and looked at me. Standing 10 feet away. Silent. Holding nothing. Doing nothing. This person, he said, his voice cracking. He pressed his fist to his mouth for a moment, steadied himself, then dropped his hand. This person is the only honest Calloway in this room. 200 people looked at me. I didn't speak. I didn't nod. I didn't need to. Marcus walked off the patio and didn't look back. His groomsmen followed, exchanging looks that said what nobody would say out loud. This wedding was over. Claire sank to the floor. Her dress pulled around her like a deflated parachute. 2 bridesmaids crouched beside her. My mother turned to me. The composure was not just cracked, it was gone, shattered, scattered across 12 acres of vineyard. Are you happy now? Her voice came out raw. You destroyed your sister's life. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step closer. I spoke clearly enough for the nearby tables to hear, not because I wanted an audience, but because I was done having conversations in corners. No, Mom. Claire's choices destroyed Claire's life. My company's standard compliance process found the truth. That's not revenge. That's accountability. You could have buried it. And committed fraud. Risked my employees, my clients, everything I built out for a lie. No. Something shifted in the crowd. I could feel it, the weight of perception tilting, slowly, like a heavy door swinging open for the first time in years. Aunt Gloria pressed her hand to her mouth. An older man on Marcus's side nodded at me once. Just once. But it meant everything. Vivian looked around the room. For the first time in her life, the room wasn't with her. She turned and walked toward the parking lot without another word. And that wasn't even the end. Because then my father followed me into the parking lot. And what he said in the dark, under those string lights, finally broke the 9-year silence between us. Plus, the fallout was just beginning. Part 5 is where everything lands. I was halfway across the gravel parking lot when I heard his footsteps. Uneven. Hurried. Dress shoes on loose stone. Nora. Wait. I stopped. But I didn't turn around. The evening air was warm and still. Crickets had started up in the vineyard rows. I have nothing left to say, Dad. Then let me say something. His voice was winded. Finally, I turned. My father stood under the last string of lights before the edge of the parking lot. His tie was loose. His eyes were swollen. He looked 10 years older than the man I'd left sitting in the garage 9 years ago. I knew it was wrong, he said. Every single day, Nora. Every day I watched what your mother was doing to you, I knew it was wrong. And I said nothing. Why? He pressed his lips together. Looked at the ground. Looked back at me. Because I was a coward. Because it was easier to lose you quietly than to fight her loudly. His voice broke. And that makes me worse than her. Because she at least believed she was right. I knew she was wrong. And I still chose peace. The word hung between us like smoke. Peace. The same word he'd hidden behind my entire life. That wasn't peace, Dad. That was abandonment. I know. Silence. A car started somewhere in the lot. The muffled bass of reception music still drifted through the glass doors of the estate. Somewhere behind us, Claire was still sitting on the ground in her wedding dress. Somewhere, my mother was finding her car keys. And here, under a string of lights on a gravel lot, my father was doing the only honest thing he'd done in a decade. I don't hate you, I said. But I can't forgive you tonight. Maybe not for a long time. That's fair. I need to go. He nodded. Drive safe. 2 words. Simple. Small. But for the first time in 9 years, my father said something to me that wasn't designed to end a conversation. It was an admission that he had no right to extend one. Serena was waiting by the car. She didn't ask what he said. She just started the engine. I didn't cry until we hit the highway. Then I wept. Deeply. Shoulders shaking. The kind of crying that doesn't come from sadness alone but from something being released, something that had been locked inside since I was 18 years old standing at a bus stop in the dark with $340 and 1 suitcase. It poured out of me on that highway, and Serena just drove and said nothing, and that was exactly right. The fallout came in waves. Within 48 hours, my phone wouldn't stop. But for the first time in nearly a decade, the calls weren't accusations. They were apologies. Aunt Gloria called Monday morning. Her voice was lower. Stripped of its certainty. Nora, I owe you an apology. I believed everything your mother told me for 9 years. Every word. I was wrong. I thanked her. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. My great-aunt Meredith, my grandmother's sister, the oldest living member of the family, sent me an email that night. 3 lines. Your grandmother would have been so proud of you. I'm sorry we weren't there. Please don't give up on all of us. Professionally, Marcus's team began verifying Claire's employment history. What they found confirmed everything. Claire had never held the title of healthcare administrator. She was a receptionist, by all accounts a good one, personable, organized, but the title on her LinkedIn, the credentials on her resume, the framed degree on the wall of her home office, none of it was real. Marcus emailed me Tuesday evening. Professional. Controlled. The ClearBridge contract remains on track. I won't let personal matters affect our professional relationship. But I need some time before our next meeting. I understood. Vivian posted on Facebook once after the wedding. Long, tearful. My family is being torn apart by jealousy and lies. Pray for us. Same playbook. But this time the comment section didn't cooperate. What about Nora? What really happened at the wedding? Is the degree thing true? She deleted the post within 4 hours. Then, on Wednesday night, a text from Claire. No preamble. No performance. I'm sorry for all of it. I don't expect you to believe me. I read it 3 times. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I didn't know what to say yet. Some messages need time to sit before you know what they deserve. 2 weeks later, the consequences had stopped being whispers and started becoming facts. Claire was terminated from Lakeridge Medical Partners. HR confirmed what Marcus already knew. She had misrepresented her credentials on her employment application. Under Connecticut's at-will employment laws, that alone was sufficient. But it was worse than a simple termination, because Claire had listed those false credentials on paperwork submitted during a federal compliance audit the previous year. The clinic's legal team flagged it as a potential liability. She wasn't criminally charged. There was no patient harm. But the termination was documented as credential misrepresentation. And in healthcare, that follows you. Marcus called off the wedding quietly. No statement. No drama. He simply informed family and friends that the engagement was over. The estate refunded what it could. The registry gifts were returned. Vivian's social circle began to contract. Old friends stopped calling. Neighbors who used to drop by kept their distance. Great-Aunt Meredith told me that at a family gathering the following month, Vivian sat in the corner and spoke to almost no one. She looked like a woman who had run out of script, Meredith said. The Clearbridge contract with Lakeridge went through on schedule. $2.8 million. My team handled the implementation over the following 6 months. Marcus and I kept things professional, clean, efficient. He sent flowers on Clearbridge's 5th anniversary. The card read, "From one self-made person to another." Then on a rainy Thursday, a small package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Connecticut postmark. Inside was a piece of paper I hadn't seen in 12 years. My honor roll certificate. The one my mother had pulled off the refrigerator when I was 15. Slightly bent at the corners, yellowed at the edges. A post-it note was stuck to the back, in my father's shaky handwriting. It was never cluttered. It was always yours. He'd kept it. 12 years in a desk drawer, hidden from Vivian. The way he'd hidden every honest impulse he'd ever had. It wasn't enough. A piece of paper can't undo a decade. But I held it for a long time before I set it down. I didn't call anyone for a week. I needed the silence. Then on a Sunday morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee and did what I should have done years ago. I set the terms. I wrote my mother an email. Not a call, because Vivian performed best in real time, and I wasn't giving her a stage. Mom, I don't hate you. But I won't pretend anymore. You chose Claire not because she needed you more, but because she was easier to control. I was inconvenient because I asked questions. I'm not asking anymore. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with honesty. Not a performance. Not a Facebook post. Honesty. The ball is in your court. I hit send. I didn't reread it. She never replied. I wasn't surprised. Some people would rather lose a daughter than admit they were wrong. I've made peace with that. Not because it doesn't hurt, it does, it always will, but because waiting for her to change was hurting more. I called my father the following evening. I'm open to staying in touch, I said. But on my terms. No more give it time. No more hiding behind Mom. If you want to be my father out loud. A long pause. I could hear him breathing. I'll try. Don't try. Do. Okay. It wasn't a grand reconciliation. It was a crack in a wall. Enough to let some light through. Not enough to walk through. Not yet. He calls me every Sunday now. 5:30 in the evening, like clockwork. The calls last 5 to 10 minutes. He tells me about the weather, about his neighbor's dog, about a documentary he watched. He never mentions Vivian. I never ask. It's not enough. But after 9 years of nothing, something feels like a great deal. He's trying. I see that. I'm not sure trying is enough, but he's doing it out loud, and that part matters. Claire enrolled at a community college in New Haven. A real program this time. Real transcripts. Real coursework. She sent me a handwritten letter, for pages front and back, about 3 months after the wedding. I read it at my kitchen table. It was honest in a way Claire had never been honest with me before. She didn't blame Vivian. She didn't blame me. She wrote, I spent so long being who they wanted me to be that I forgot to become anyone real. Aw. Even after everything, aw. Because I knew what that felt like. The difference was that I left before the lie became me. I haven't written back yet. Some letters need time to sit. But I haven't thrown it away either. It's in my desk drawer, right next to the honor roll certificate. Maybe someday. But on my timeline. Nobody else's. That Friday night, Serena came over with Thai food and a bottle of wine. We sat on my living room floor, containers spread between us, and she raised her glass. To the family you chose. I smiled. For the first time in this whole story, a real one. To the family I chose. People ask me sometimes, when they hear pieces of this story, do you feel vindicated? I'm sitting in my office right now. Early morning, before anyone else comes in. The Boston skyline is turning orange outside the window. 28 desks out there. 28 people who will walk in within the hour, each of them building something that matters. This company started as 12 pages in a professor's lab and a girl who couldn't afford her own dorm sheets. And no. I don't feel vindicated. Vindication would mean I needed them to be wrong for me to be right. I didn't. I just needed to be free. For years, I measured myself by a scale my mother built. A scale designed so that I would always fall short and Claire would always shine. It took me a long time to realize the scale itself was broken. Not me. I started therapy 3 years ago. Twice a month, Wednesday evenings. My therapist has a way of asking questions that make you sit in absolute silence for a full minute before you can answer. I used to think therapy was something you needed only if you couldn't handle your own problems. It's actually the opposite. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than building ClearBridge. Harder than sleeping 3 hours a night. Harder than walking into that wedding. My mother's voice still plays in my head sometimes. Resilience is a gift, Nora. She said it to justify leaving me with nothing. She meant it as a weapon. But she was right about one thing. Resilience is a gift. She just didn't give it to me. I forged it myself. In late-night kitchens and early-morning classrooms and a dorm room with a broken window, and nobody gets to take credit for that. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. My mother still lives in the house on Cedarwood Place. She posts on Facebook less now. Mostly photos of her garden. Short captions. No more long paragraphs about sacrifice and motherhood. Aunt Gloria told me Vivian joined a book club but quit after 2 meetings because the women asked too many personal questions. Some people would rather lose a daughter than admit they were wrong. I have made peace with that. It still hurts. I won't pretend it doesn't. But the hurt has changed shape. It's no longer the kind that keeps me awake. It's quieter now. More like weather than a wound. If you're watching this and you recognize your family in mine, I see you. I was you. You don't have to blow up a wedding to find your freedom. Sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's blocking a number at 2 in the morning. Sometimes it's walking into a therapist's office for the very first time and saying the sentence you've been holding for years. Sometimes it's just the word no. Said once. Said clearly. And not taken back. My parents taught me one thing, even though they didn't mean to. They taught me I could survive without them. And once you know that or really know it, in your bones, in your worst moments, in the silence of an empty dorm room at 18 years old, nobody has power over you anymore. Nobody. I don't tell this story for pity. I have a company. I have a best friend who held my hand under a tablecloth at the worst dinner party in Connecticut history. I have a life I built with my own 2 burned, cracked, dishwater-wrinkled hands. I don't need pity. I tell this story because for 9 years, my mother controlled the narrative. Nora left because she was difficult. Nora refused our help. Nora is the problem. 200 people believed her. My aunt believed her. My cousins believed her. And there were nights, long, cold, 3 in the morning nights, when I almost believed her too. Today, I'm taking my story back. If you are the scapegoat in your family, the one who's too much or never quite enough, if you are the name whispered at family dinners, the child whose certificate was pulled off the refrigerator, hear me when I say this. Their rejection is not your reflection. I'm Nora Calloway. I'm 27. I run a company I built from nothing. I have a family that chose me. And I sleep well at night. That is enough. That is more than enough. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. And remember, you are not alone.